Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing great. And so I found this really interesting comment on my channel regarding NAT the other day. And Money in the Bank, I like the name by the way, said the CEO's son buys shares of NAT every few weeks. It seems shady, and I found this interesting tweet. Okay, so I go on, I click on the tweet, and here by Shaw Investments, I'm saying, I've been investing in shipping stocks long enough to hate poor corporate governance. So he's saying between March 2015 to May 2017, the Hansen family has announced the purchase of 385,000 NAT shares, while it has been silently selling over 1 million shares. Okay, so I found this really interesting, and of course, whenever I do NAT updates, I always talk about the press releases from NAT, and they always say like, oh, like son CEO's son purchases 50,000 shares or whatever, right? So I found this really interesting, and thank you so much for the comment, Money in the Bank. And you can pause this and look at it a little bit more closely. I know it's kind of hard to see, but pretty much you can see here, this was in 2015, that they owned 4.3% of the shares outstanding at 3,800,000 shares, or around there. And 2 years later, as of May 1st, 2017, they have 2,987,000 shares. So a decrease from 4.3% of the shares outstanding to 2.93% of the shares outstanding. As I understand it, though, this represents this like 2.93% and close to 3 million shares represents all the shares that the Hansen family owns, right? And so, he did some calculations here, and so that between March 27th, 2015 and May 1st, 2017, they announced on their NAT website, which we'll go into a bit more depth after, that they purchased 385,000 shares in NAT, but there was no announcement in the same period of the sale of close to 1.3 million shares in NAT. Okay, and so of course this is like this guy's saying, poor corporate governance, right? It's pretty shady practice, and not very honest to investors, especially when they look at the overall website. When they click on the website, those are the press releases, right? So those are the things that pop out, and you have to actually go into like the 2014 20F report form to actually kind of tease this info out, right? To see how many shares they sold or bought, right? And of course, it is on the duty of the investor to look into this. But again, this is sort of shady practice that NAT would actually do this, right? So this does not really sit well with me. So I actually looked into the previous couple of years, at least 2018 and 2019. I might do a bit more research on this later to see how many shares the Hansen family owns. And so pretty much you can just go on their investor relations page and go to annual reports, and you'll see like annual report 2019, annual report 2018. So in 2018, the family owned, as you can see here in the bolded here, close to 3.8 million shares, which represents 2.7% of the shares outstanding. And they had like 141 million, close to 142 million common shares outstanding at the date of this report. So I believe it was like December 31st, right? And then a year later, so you remember 3.8 million. A year later, they actually increased the amount of shares that they own, close to 4.4 million against like 147 million shares outstanding, which represents a close to 3% ownership in NAT by the major shareholders, or like the Hansen family, right? And I actually went through the press releases at this time, which they usually talk about, or they usually include the shares that they purchase, but never really the shares that they sell. And I actually made this little spreadsheet here, and we can see in 2019 they announced that they bought 200,000 shares, but in 2018 they didn't announce that they bought any shares. But really the difference here, if we go back to when I looked at the 2018 versus 2019 levels, they owned in 2018 3.8 million, whereas in 2019 they owned 4.4 million, which is, they added over 500,000, so 522,250 more shares between 2018 and 2019, right? whereas they only announced 200,000 shares, right? So again, when I was looking at the press releases, of course, they definitely didn't announce the selling of shares, but they did announce some of the buying of shares. So again, I find this, a little shady, and they definitely don't put out all the shares that they buy. But I do see, at least between 2018 and 2019, that they bought or that they own more shares. Seems like they believe in the future of NAT a bit more than, as we can see, between 2015 and 2017, where they actually sold a lot of their shares, right? So I mean, this is definitely, of course, a thing to keep your eye out on. I might try to find a way to actually see in real time the purchase and selling of shares. If you know a good website where you can see exactly where the board of directors buys and sells shares for companies like NAT, please let me know in the comments. That has been incredibly helpful. And I mean, one example of this is like, around the March 5th area, they came out with a press release saying the Hansen family buys more stock in NAT. So this was March 5th. Literally the exact same content can be found like here on February 28th, where they say the Hansen family buys more stock, and also February 26th. So I mean, like, they also do the same press release like 3 times over. Okay, so I'll definitely try to keep my eye out on that. And of course, on my weekly tanker updates every Friday that I try to do, I'll hopefully have more info on that. I just wanted to bring this to your attention. So any NAT shareholder, I think definitely this is something that you should know. So of course, you can go on the annual reports and see exactly how many shares that the board of directors and the Hansen family owns. So I thought this was very interesting. Again, thank you so much for your comment, Money in the Bank. And again, if you're new, welcome, and please be sure to give it a like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. And I hope to see you next time, guys. Love you all. Have a fantastic day.